The Dublab Spring Membership Drive is happening now and throughout the month of May. If you enjoy the Dublab archives, help us continue by donating today and become a member. For more details, visit dublab.com/membership.
Hello and welcome to In Conversation, a Dublab podcast where each week we will bring you interviews from the Dublab Radio archives.
This is Mikey Nightchilde from VSSL Radio, and right now you are listening to Pinking, the opening track from Martin Gore's latest solo album, MG, which was recently released on Mute Records. I had the pleasure to speak to Martin, picking his brain about the backstory of MG, how it was constructed, and a little about Mute Records and his long relationship with the label. Being a longtime fan of Depeche Mode, when I got asked to do this interview, I was absolutely thrilled. This was my chance to hear how Martin's creative process worked. Martin, thank you so much for joining us here on Dublab.
You are welcome.
All right, so let's talk about MG. I know you've written other instrumental compositions before, and this is your first solo album of all instrumental originals. So for me, being a huge fan of bands like Tangerine Dream or instrumentalist producers like Wolfgang Voigt, was there any sort of inspiration that persuaded you to make a record without words?
Well, over the years, I have actually written a lot of instrumentals that have actually appeared on Depeche Mode albums as interludes or even actual instrumental tracks, or they've been, B-sides back in the old days. So it's not something that's new to me. It's just the concept of making a whole instrumental album was quite exciting. And, getting the whole thing to work as a whole was a challenge and fun to do.
I did some research after I first listened to the record, and I read that with the album, the starting point was with a few tracks that were meant to be on Delta Machine, and the last Depeche Mode record. Can you tell us what tracks those were initially? Elk was written quite early on, and Brink was written around that date. I think Featherlight was written around that time as well. There might have been one more. I can't remember actually which other one I started. So from those tracks, were all the newer stuff that you were writing, were they based off of those tracks, or did you kind of tweak those tracks to make them fit the newer stuff that you were writing for the record?
No, I think that although Brink was, kind of techno and sort of would fit into that genre, the other two tracks were more atmospheric, and I felt like that was the way to go with this album, because the last time the band took a break, I did that project with Vince Clarke, the VCMG project, and so I thought that it would be very predictable of me to put out another techno kind of record. So I like the idea of making it more of a filmic, cinematic thing. So, I liked Brink and kept it on the album because one of the things I was concerned about was making sure there was a lot of diversity on the record.
Right.
But in general, I wanted it to be more kind of, soundscapey.
So right when the ball started rolling, was what was the key vision you had in mind for MG?
Well, I don't think other than making it a filmic kind of record and keeping all of the tracks quite short, as I saw them as being tailored for a scene for a film. So I didn't want tracks dragging off into the 8-minute mark. I wanted it like it was just a short little piece for a film. Other than that, I didn't really have a great vision for it, other than trying to make everything different but still keep it quite atmospheric.
The first time I heard MG a few weeks ago, I was on my way to a mixing session with my bandmate in his car, and all I could think of was, this record sounds completely flawless. And I know sometimes artists look back at their work when it's finished and are like, man, I just noticed this little thing, or I wish I could have just turned that up right here. Or was there anything you maybe wanted to change on the record after hearing it complete as a whole?
I don't think I ever think like that. When I finish a record, even with the band, I may look back now and think, what were we doing when we made Speak and Spell? But
yeah.
It brought us to to the attention of the world, and maybe there are some things that I would change in hindsight now, but maybe I wouldn't be making records today. I don't over focus on everything, and and it's not like I listen to it all the time as well.
Yeah.
I did an interview with somebody yesterday, and they were saying, what's your favourite track? And I was saying, well, it kind of changes all the time, but at the same time, I don't listen to it. It's not like I'm constantly listening to it. I said I haven't probably even heard the record now for like 6 to 8 weeks. I had to listen to the test pressings when they came in.
Of course.
But I don't go to bed each night putting it on.
Yeah, you're not falling asleep to the record. So I wanted to talk about that track, the track Hum. So first off, I wish that track was 15 minutes long, because there's got to be like an extended remix of it. It's so just hypnotic and just awesome. I love that track. But to me, I got this like very visual aspect to the track, like Poltergeist, like static, like from the movie, and then once the music starts kicking in, I get like this first person view of like flying through downtown LA, like at nighttime, like kind of like Blade Runner or something. But were there any moments for you once you got to hear the record for the first time from start to finish that sent visuals through your head, or even while like writing a particular track?
Well, I think that when I first started out, I didn't really, have this vision of it being kind of sci-fi-like at all. And I think with me, I think it sometimes takes a little while to realise what I'm doing. And I think when I maybe got, 5 or 6 tracks in and I was like listening back to them, I thought, this is quite sci-fi and I like that. And so I kept that, at the back of my mind when I was like working on the rest of the album.
So it was basically the process of the sounds that you were coming up with that was just that made it into this kind of sci-fi element, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I suppose so. When I was unaware of that, I suppose it was the choice of instrumentation and the sounds that were created.
Yeah.
The kind of iciness and just, I don't know, when I closed my eyes I saw kind of like space visions, and for some reason I saw a lot of travel. Things were always moving when I was like seeing pictures. So for Europa Hymn, you have a video for that. As far as like the director, his name is M.I.E. or is it, how do you pronounce his name? Good question. I don't even know. No, when we decided to put out a lead track, I mean, we have to be careful not to use the word single, because you can't really put out a single from an instrumentals album. Yeah. We decided to make a video for it, and, with the concept of the whole album, because the majority of it was made on modular synthesizers, with the whole visuals for the sleeve and everything, we had a lot of different versions of modular synthesizers drawn up, and we chose I chose the simplest one, which was just the kind of attenuverter, like, just one knob. Oh yeah. And I summed it all up, but was very simple. And the idea that we had was to carry that on with the video. Yes. So the cover was made before the video was actually made. Yes. And the video was made in London, and the guy who puts the stuff together for Mute is based in London, and he recommended the company that actually made this video. So they sent a script over, if you will. You can't really call it a script, I suppose, for animation. They sent over
yeah. Just like a demo, like a video demo, or
and I really liked it, so decided to go with that.
Sometimes while writing, you may encounter a combination of sounds together that don't really fit the record, but it's still like too cool to throw away. Were there any moments during the creative process of MG that you were like, oh man, I'm going to save the sound, or I'm going to save this track for DM or something else?
Not really, no. And it's, obviously you can, if you come up with an amazing sound, you can record it and save it for something later. But one of the things I really like about modular synthesizers is that, once you've created a patch, you either record it or it's gone.
Oh, yeah.
You can leave it up for maybe a day, but the chances are if you come back the next day, it won't sound exactly the same. Yeah, it really depends what modules you're using, but there's, it will be, there will be some resemblance probably, but I have left things up overnight and come back the next day and thought, that sounds really different. And it, a lot of the newer stuff is obviously temperature compensated and stuff like that, but don't know how people did it back in the old days, where oscillators, would just go out of tune.
Oh my God, even like the ARP 2600 or something, just completely out of tune.
Yeah.
So this album is released on Mute Records, and I've been a huge, longtime fan of the label, and I'm so glad to see Daniel Miller has it still going on. So as far as Daniel, when you sent him the ideas, was there any advice or constructive criticism you got from him about the record?
Yes, firstly, I'd like to say that I'm probably a longer time fan of Mute than you, because we were big fans of Mute Records before we signed to them.
Yeah,
and we were lucky enough to get a support slot with Fad Gadget, and Daniel was mixing the sound, and that's how we got to meet him. And he was a superstar to us back then. I'm
sure, yeah.
We were complete unknowns, and on the night we met him, he offered us a one-off single deal. So it's just great that all these years later, it's like 35 years later, we're still working with him. He's involved in everything that obviously I do. This record just came out on Mute Records, like you said, but also with the band. Even the band's last few studio albums that have come out on major labels have involved Daniel in some form or another. We always get him into the studio, and we value his opinion a lot. He's very important to the band still.
That's amazing, yeah. So were there any final changes before it finally went to press?
Daniel, he's not your average record company guy. When he comes into the studio, he might even say, "Oh, I'm not sure about that sound. Let me have a go at that," because you have to remember, Daniel was a synthesizer wizard way before we knew very much about it at all.
Yeah.
We were a synth band. He came into the studio with his ARP 2600. We'd never seen one before. So he still can be hands-on even in the studio. He's not like your typical record company A&R man who comes in and talks a lot of nonsense.
Yeah.
So and he's got such a broad taste in music. He knows so much about so many different styles and is into so many kinds of music. So when I sent him stuff, he would not often, but there was one track in particular that I remember that he said, there's just too much going on, and it all happens too quickly. I think it would be much nicer if it was mellower and not so much happening, and it just evolved very slowly. So I listened back to it and I thought, he's absolutely right. So I went back to it and worked on it and made it into a much mellower track.
Awesome, yeah. He's like the guru.
He is.
So since doing the VCMG collaboration, was there any chance that you may have sent the demo to Vince to get some criticism from him as well?
No, I mean, I did enjoy that project, and it was fun to reconnect with Vince, even though we did it, distantly. You know, we sent files to each other. You know, we did meet up to do some interviews after the record was finished. And, I saw him a couple of times after that as well. But, when I decided to do this project, I decided to do it on my own. So, I didn't really feel the need to contact Vince.
Yeah. All right, so I just wanted to say how much of a fan I've been of your music. I still have a copy of Some Great Reward on cassette tape that I got when I was like 10. And the actual tape is... because I played the tape so much, the tape, it actually has like this warble sound to it, like a warped sound. But yeah, that stuff, like that tape basically opened my eyes to something more than the hair metal stuff I was listening to before that record. So, but yeah, and now I'm listening to MG, and thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much.
So there you have it. A few tracks from MG by Martin Gore, which just recently released on Mute Records. It's an album that's visual and tells a story without the need of dialogue. I highly recommend checking out the album. To me, it's Martin's best work. Again, this is Mikey Nightchilde, and you are listening to dublab.com.
In Conversation was produced by Dublab, a nonprofit radio station broadcasting live from Los Angeles since 1999. Sound editing and theme song by Matea Baim. For more programming, visit dublab.com. And thank you for listening.